There's all these outlets that are available for men to continue to drift away from themselves,
Yeah.
right? Drift away from the discomfort and complexities that come with relationships. The only way to grow is to fully expose yourself. This is why I think a lot of people would rather find some convenient hack, tip, trick to be able to not have to go through that.
What are the shifts that made you say, okay, I'm going to embrace this mess and we're going to recalibrate how I show up in relationships? All right, everyone, welcome back to another deep dive on Enheartened. And today is going to be, I want to say, a melting pot of a deep dive into relationships and also a deep dive into truth, a deep dive into, I think, a new kind of relational bravery that is really needed to go through the relational world and the trials and tribulations that come with it with as much of an open heart as possible. So today on the podcast, I have a guest that whose work I've been binging, loving a lot. It is one of the voices out there. He is one of the voices out there doing the very best he can to infuse truth in back in the relational conversation, where things can sometimes be very polarized and filled with hacks, and everybody wants their hack to the great relationship. And I'm like, God damn it, let's actually lean in and do the work. So I have a sense that Jeremiah is really embodying that. And this is the reason why I wanted to have him, on the podcast. He's a facilitator, a men's coach. He also works with women. But I'm a devotee of truth. And when I see that in somebody, I just want to bring that forth. And hopefully I trust that this is what we're going to do in this conversation with Jeremiah. So, brother, thank you so much for being here on the podcast. And what's up? How are you doing?
And I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful to be here with you. Great, we get a chance to connect outside of some of our conversations we had online, and really grateful for the introduction, man. Beautiful introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. I usually I don't consider myself great at introduction. So basically, I tune into the energy of people and I name what I sense. I name what I feel. And sometimes, it might not be the most um accurate thing, but I've rarely been proven wrong in these. So yeah, that's how I feel about you. That's how I feel about your work. And part of me wants to ask you this question. It's like, what drew you into relational work? I feel like you carry so much depth of insight, wisdom that you could have chosen nearly any angle of the work of personal transformation. So, what drew you to the relational work, especially? Is there anything in your journey that has informed your choice to help people with their relationships?
Ooh, great question. Um, yeah, I haven't thought about this for a while. There were a lot of moments in my life that I would say kind of activated something in me
Hmm.
uh, to be more sensitive to what was happening around me, especially in my relationships. Um, but my background is in marketing, it's in branding, it's in graphic design. I'm a visual artist. So that's the world I come from. That was what I thought I would be doing with my life. If you and I were having a conversation, I thought we would be talking about my art. I thought we'd be talking about my designs. But we're here talking about relationships and maybe about masculinity, maybe the culture of masculinity today or dating. This was not something I planned. This isn't something that I expected to happen. There was a pivotal moment in my life where I was in the marketing world, I was in the branding world, and I was at this point where, in my own way, I was climbing the corporate ladder.
Hmm.
And I was striving for that moment that everyone has in their own way of like, I can finally relax. I can finally be at ease. I finally got there. And for me, that was more about financial independence, and financial security. So climbing that corporate ladder, I found that aiming for a certain amount of money in your bank account does not provide you purpose, does not
Yeah.
provide you fulfillment. It provides you something to chase after, like a little hamster on a wheel, going after whatever carrot that is in front of you. You're chasing it, you're chasing it, you're chasing it. And in a way, it feels purposeful because you have something to do, you have something to dedicate yourself to, right? And maybe part of that motivation is about providing for people, taking care of your family, living a life that feels peaceful and relaxed, right? Um, but through that, I felt really stuck.
Hmm.
Felt really stuck at a point where I shouldn't, right? Quote unquote, shouldn't feel stuck. I shouldn't feel disappointed. I shouldn't feel empty. Going to conferences, having deep conversations with my executives, leading teams, managing, doing all the things at a very, very young age. And I felt stuck. And I felt stuck because in a way I was living a double life. Nobody knew this, but I knew it in my private. I was living a double life.
Hmm.
So on the outside to the external world, I was this account manager. I was leading teams, doing the branding, working with brands and things like that. But in my private life, I was a spiritual junkie. I loved spirituality. I was deep in my meditation. I would walk into work, but nobody would know that I had been fasting for 12 days.
Yeah.
I was deep in my practices. I was trying to get a better understanding of my connection to God and this whole thing that we call spirituality and religion, right?
Yeah.
So I found a tension. There was an inner conflict of, is this the thing that's supposed to be bringing me the purpose? Is there a way to harmonize what I feel and what I practice and what I believe in my private life with the things that are present in my public life? And so it led me into doing some deep work, but also a retreat. And like most people, this was triggered through 2021 COVID pandemic,
Yeah.
which I think was a transformative time for many people in their lives. But for me, especially, it provided a space to really breathe and to exhale. And that exhale included responsibilities, that included the corporate job I had, that included my environment that I had become so accustomed to, and retreating from all of that,
Hmm.
exhaling all of that, pushing it all away, and retreating to Mexico to have some time with myself. And through that excavation, I found a deep curiosity for relationships, for understanding myself through the channel of relationships. And that's where I found a lot of my work, and that's where I found a lot of my transformation. And so I started creating outlets to just have these conversations in my personal life. And then it started showing up in my work life with
Yeah.
clients, with entrepreneurs that I was working with. A lot led back to the private life. We're
Yeah.
talking about their money, we're talking about their business, and we keep coming back to the relationship.
Yeah.
And it was like, the way you're showing up in your business is a reflection of the way you're showing up in your relationship. And I keep noticing this thread and I couldn't ignore it anymore. The relationships, the quality of your relationships in a way are determining the quality of your life. And for
Mm.
the business owners I was speaking to, it's also to determine the quality of your business and your leadership there. I was like, damn, this is really important. And I was like,
Yeah.
why, where am I not looking at this myself? And how is that showing up in my own life? Um, so all of it had a snowball effect that led me to talk about these things online, share some of my insights, my revelations, and what I was experiencing, just not trying to walk the talk, but more
Hmm.
so talk the walk. Like,
Hmm.
this is just what I was walking through. This is just what I was realizing. And somehow it gravitated an audience, a community, the people who resonated, were curious and wanted to know more. And from there, the rest is history. But I see it all as a selfish pursuit.
Yeah.
See it all as a selfish pursuit. This is really about me at the end of the day. I just so happen to help people in the process. But I'm a person that for a long time pushed against relationships. I find
Because
comfort in my own company, right?
yeah.
And now I'm reparenting myself to honor relationships, to see them as sacred, to invest in them, to explore them at a deep level, rather
Yeah.
than retreating into my comfort zone, which is more about myself. So
Yeah.
that is one of the big moments that I think have brought me to the work that I'm doing now.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that context and for that answer. And you said something that struck me. There are multiple things, but the most recent was I was someone who pushed against relationships. And the initial response that I had was because you pushed against them because, or staying alone or staying in your own space, in your own bubble, that was more comfortable because,
Mm. It was more comfortable because I didn't experience the discomfort
yeah,
that comes with relationships,
yeah.
the
And what was your
activation.
imprint of that discomfort? What was that in your personal history that just gave you this imprint that, man, relationships are just like hassle, work, drama?
Well, for me, I grew up in a very, very big family.
Yeah.
6 siblings, 2 parents. It was a very big family, so I was always in a relationship with something or someone. But these relationships, in a way, forced me to get really comfortable with being by myself really
Hmm.
quickly. And so a lot of that discomfort came from not having space to really take up space,
Yeah.
to honor my uniqueness, to really feel that I could be myself, even around my family, and to not have that expression shamed or punished. That was the discomfort that, in a way, I was trying to protect myself from by pushing against relationships.
Yeah.
Because when I was by myself, I didn't experience any of that discomfort. All self expression was available. The full spectrum of Jeremiah was accessible to me. And I
Yeah.
was like, whoa, I don't find this in relationships. So why should I even lean in when there's so much here?
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was that's been my comfort zone for some time.
Would you say that to a certain degree, collectively, men have defaulted to that kind of like, let me just stay in my space, when I am in this space, no one is telling me how a man should be, no one is telling me how I should show up. No one, I don't know, no one is nagging me. Society is not telling me that I'm toxic when I just stay in this space in my own sphere. Would you say that to a certain degree, in the collective psyche of the masculine, of men, this is what many are expressing?
Yes, I think so. Um, I think men are expressing this retreat from that discomfort and complexity that comes with relationships in many different ways. It can show up as choosing a life where you're not in partnership, yet you're a playboy. You're
Yeah,
dating multiple women, you have a full roster of women. It can also look like choosing one woman and committing to her, yet she worships your ego. She doesn't
hmm,
challenge you to be better. She
yeah,
doesn't provoke or, you know, bring you a sense of accountability, responsibility. She kind of pampers the boy in you and
yeah,
mothers him to a point where you might feel like you're able to do whatever you want when you want and say whatever you want when you want and how you want it to. So
hmm,
all of these are forms of where we're kind of retreating from the discomfort that comes with being in relationships that invite us to be honest, that invite us to be responsible, that invite us to be accountable, right?
yeah,
And integrated whole men. So I think there is a lot of that present. And there are so many outlets today in the way that modern society is set up with technology, with pornographic content easily accessible to all of us.
yeah,
AI coming into the picture where you are now communicating with this very one sided relationship that is in a way designed to agree with you, pamper to you, and cater to you, right? There's all these outlets that are available for men to continue to drift away from themselves,
yeah,
right? Drift away from the discomfort and complexities that come with relationships, but also the growth, right? Because within that discomfort is an unlimited room for evolution, growth, maturity that I think we don't realize that we're forfeiting that in the process because we feel comfortable, we feel safer when we're pushing away from that.
yeah. I love that. You mentioned something in your personal journey, and I'm curious about it, a before and after picture. that I hope we can illustrate. The moment where you mentioned living a double life where the creative, the spiritual devotee in you was in the shadow, not really in the shadow, but more in the private.
Yeah.
And there was this other, I don't know, public face that you had built, the one that could engage with the world, lead the teams at work and all of that. And I wonder, what would you say was the quality of your relationships or the main feeling, like a general assessment of the quality of your relationship during that phase where you felt, well, your life was fragmented, meaning, yeah, you entertain a private figure and you also have a public face that is, different to say the least.
Mm. Yeah, the quality of my relationships at that time, and I'm sure many listeners can relate, it felt like a, it felt like me playing small.
Hmm.
I
In
was
what
playing
way?
small in each of these relationships, meaning that I wasn't really embodying my full truth. I
Hmm.
was embodying a truth that helped everyone around me feel more comfortable in my presence.
Hmm.
So in a way, I was pleasing others. I was curating an identity around what I thought people wanted me to be, because the fear of being who I wanted to be came from, wait, if I'm really my authentic self, some of these relationships won't survive that
Hmm.
awakening. A lot of these relationships won't survive that awakening. There was a secret part of me that knew that, because the relationships had been cultivated from a place of comfort, from a place of shutting down, from a place of suppressing my truth, and from
Yeah.
a place of fawning. Like, I'm who you want to be. And so a secret part of me knew that. So the entire quality or threat of it carried a tone of self suppression, not embodying my full truth, but also sidelining my needs and my boundaries in the whole process. So I didn't really have permission to be myself, because I didn't give myself that permission. I
Yeah.
didn't give myself that permission to really show up in life as bold and as honest and as unapologetic as I knew I could be. And so the same was reflected in work, right? The
Yeah.
same was reflected in why I chose to keep that spiritual, aspect of myself hidden in my private life, in my meditation room, in my home where nobody else could see it.
Yeah.
Right.
What would you say were the distinctive shifts within you in terms of like what are the traits that you repressed? What are the traits that you realized you had to begin embracing to recalibrate your relationships? What I'm getting with that is there's this liminal space where you start realizing I'm not living my full self in my relationships. I am not expressing myself as much as I would love to. Some of my needs are muted. I am more focused on like I don't know, like offering not accurate image of who I am in this relationship. But that space of undoing that can be messy. So I wonder,
Mhm.
what are the shifts that made you say, okay, I'm going to embrace this mess and we're going to recalibrate how I show up in relationships?
Mm. So one of the most important qualities I had to learn how to cultivate during this period was containment, sexual discipline,
Hmm.
self-discipline, and
Hmm.
self-respect above it all.
Hmm.
So the containment for me meant learning how to hold charge in my body
Yeah.
without leaking.
Hmm.
So charge meaning anger, grief, uh, lust, desire, power. How can I feel that without leaking it onto the
Hmm.
people around me?
Hmm.
Right. I had to learn how to cultivate that.
Hmm.
And that required me to, a lot of hard physical conditioning, uh, cold showers, sauna, putting my body under stress and learning how to stay calm and voice through.
Yeah.
Putting myself in men's containers where I'm held accountable and I'm invited to express myself, but my vulnerability isn't spilling all over everyone.
Hmm.
I'm not dumping on anyone here. And me taking up space actually isn't diminishing other people's experience in this room. So I had to cultivate this really important skill that I think is really profound and helpful for a lot of men to have. But it also really supported my relationships in that process. The sexual discipline also came from understanding that my sexual energy was leaking.
Yeah.
Sexual energy was leaking
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. Because after I was really honest about what's going on, I also noticed that I was leaning into relationships that allowed me to essentially outsource my power to women. So
Hmm.
that looked like looking for them to father things, looking for them to mother things in myself that I didn't want to embrace or father,
Hmm.
looking for myself to show up in a way
Yeah.
that was more curated to the man that I thought she wanted to me to be.
Yeah. I wanted to just make more sense to the guy tuning into this and being like, okay, what do you mean by that? I want men listening to this to be able to identify, oh, is this me trying to look for some mothering? So do you have some examples of like, okay, when I was doing things such as this, and this was really me trying to, you know, extract some mother energy from my partner. Do you have some, maybe one or two examples?
Yeah. So when men are in positions where they're looking for a woman to mother them,
Yeah.
one of the things they'll do is they'll acknowledge that maybe they have a need in the moment. For
Hmm.
example, I might need support, right? Maybe I come home and my work day was heavy
Yeah.
and I need to process some of the stress. But instead of processing some of that stress by going to one of my constructive outlets, like going to a workout, calling my brothers up, or jumping on a men's call or something like that, or checking in on my therapist, I place the responsibility to soothe and regulate through that onto my partner.
Yeah.
So I come home with that stress and I look for her to be my source of validation, remind me that I'm a great man, validate my wounding, support me by doing certain things that I could do for myself. Right. So in a way, I don't want the responsibility of what the discomfort that's coming up in the world, from the
Yeah.
stress from my work job, from the stress of being with full self in my relationships,
Yeah.
the stress from really not even tapping into my potential.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for her to soothe that. I'm looking for her to alleviate that. So
Hmm.
sometimes this also shows up as neediness. Maybe in a moment in my relationship, I feel sexual charge in my body. Instead of learning how to work through that energy, I'm always looking for my partner to alleviate that.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't alleviate that, she becomes the bad person. I make her out to be the bad person. I make her to be the villain. Instead of learning how can I work with this sexual charge without being dependent. It's
Hmm.
okay to have a partner that supports you in soothing and activating some of that sexual energy. But it's as a man, it's important not to be dependent on a woman for things that you still have to be responsible for at the end of the day,
Yeah.
which includes your emotions, which includes your desires, which includes your power,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's holding that responsibility to myself while inviting my partner to support me. If she's in a state of rescuing me from things that I don't want to face in myself, I'm putting her in a position to mother me. And this
Yeah.
can look like many different ways, from the sexuality part to my wounds to my problems, right? It can show up in many different ways, but it does not breed respect in relationships. And
Yeah.
oftentimes it causes a lot of polarity breaks
Yeah.
as well.
What I'm hearing you say, so I think a very central issue that is connected to whether it's leakage of sexual energy, inability to handle impulses or charge, to be with our charge, and that sometimes that can show up as hostility and um, I don't know, any other distorted ways. What I hear is our capacity to be with emotional pain is something that needs to be stretched. Um, and also, what I'm hearing there is one of the default mechanisms that most men have is, the wanting to just discharge. And I've felt that within myself. It's like we want to have some sort of like negativity ejaculation what I mean by that is everything that is not feeling right in the body, we just uh and by the way, when I mean ejaculation, it can also be emotional ejaculation because sometimes that's what anger, misplaced anger feels like. It's like I just need to jerk it off type energy. So what I'm hearing you say here is no, this energy, not just the charge, but also what is beneath the charge, maybe the pain that is in there. Sometimes it feels like you mentioned disappointment, after a day at work where you come back, you're like, fuck, this day sucked. Um, and I've seen that myself. Sometimes I go through periods where, there I have goals and objectives and things that I want to achieve within my work. And then, it's part of business is you don't necessarily achieve the goals that you set out to achieve. And then there's disappointment. And sometimes the inner critic comes up and then the voice of shame comes in. Um, so how pivotal do you think it is for men to not just have the outlets? Because I feel like the outlets are fantastic. Like, an outlet to move the body, um, like the gym, an outlet to be seen by other men to process these emotions. I have a feeling that this core relationship with emotional discomfort needs to be like it needs to become so healthy within a man for him to have a solid chance at leading his life from the integrated self instead of from the wounded self that is still looking for discharge mechanisms. So I want to know from your observation of working with men and with yourself as well, how important would you say that is?
Mm. I think being able to emotionally contain the discomfort in your body, the activation that comes with the stressors of life, and apply to just being a man is so pivotal. If you're a man that wants to have healthy relationships, you want to have clean and grounded leadership, and not just your relationship, but in your life and your work life as well. And also, you want to have a deep relationship with yourself at the end of the day. It's important to have not just those outlets that teach you how to regulate through the discomfort of those emotions, but to also know how to bring that in relationships in a way that feels like an invitation to the people around you,
Yeah,
right? I'm bringing and I'm sharing and I'm inviting you into my inner world in a way that feels like an invitation. How do I do that? How can I do that without shaming you, punishing you, making you the villain in my story, or leading you to feel that there's nothing here that you could say, provide that would actually help the situation? Because I'm
yeah,
so stuck in my victim story. I'm so stuck in seeing you as a bad person. How can I completely dissolve all of that and present room for people to support me in what I'm moving through? Because a lot of the times when we start doing this work and we get very fluent in these tools and these skills and having these outlets, what happens sometimes is that we start to believe that we live on an island.
yeah,
Meaning, why do I have needs then? Why would I bring that need to my wife? Why would I bring that need to my partner?
yeah,
I can regulate through this. I have my buddies. I can call him up, talk to him. I got a therapist. I don't have needs anymore. I don't need to bring that to her. If I bring that to her, then that's a boyish part of me that's coming into the picture. And that's not very masculine. I shouldn't do that.
yeah,
Right. So we start to think that having needs is boyish or childish. And we mistake that for some kind of wounding that we think we're still a part of.
yeah,
But just because we're adults doesn't mean we stop having needs.
yeah,
I mean, they're human needs for a reason.
yeah,
And we each have these basic needs in our relationships. But you also think about the work that we have to do in relationships to heal some of those wounds. They happened in relationships.
hmm,
So I have to present myself the opportunity to heal them through relationship. And that doesn't mean I expect them to be that savior and that fixer of the things that happened to me in the past. It means that I understand that there's a self regulation aspect to this work. I learn how to move and regulate through my own discomfort. And then there's a co regulation aspect where I give the people in my life the opportunity to help me find and uncover corrected experiences, right?
Yeah.
Where once when I opened up and the world shut down and they yelled at me, or I got beat, or I got abused because I expressed my truth, now I'm in a setting where I'm expressing that truth and I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel acknowledged, I feel embraced by the people around me. That's
Yeah.
a corrective experience that must happen through relationships. It
Yeah.
must happen through relationships.
Yeah. You know, there is something to be said about um most men when it comes to the journey of opening up again, especially after they've gone through some form of heartbreak, feeling unseen for whatever reason, um, you know, from experiences of previous conflict. And I'm not saying that they didn't play their role in there. They absolutely did, because it takes multiple people to tango. Sometimes, it takes it takes your imprinted, your conditioning. You bring your motherly baggage, fatherly baggage. Anyways, where I'm getting at is, what would you say to a guy that is in this situation where intellectually he knows, I need to find a different approach to expressing, to communicating, to addressing needs, to even negotiate needs, instead of just expecting that this should go this way or that way, because it feels like we are navigating times where there are no more templates, and it's extremely confusing for many people when it comes to relationships, at least. It's like, okay, the templates that we used to have, like some of the traditional templates, you know, there are still the I want to say some strong propensities that we have as men or women. And at the same time, the world has evolved so much that the relational expectations are not exactly what they used to be. So the negotiation of needs right now within each relationship can feel so vulnerable, can feel so like exposing, can feel like, okay, I'm gonna have here to come here and bare my heart open, whereas I might, I may be carrying remnants of heartbreak. What would you tell to a guy who is in that place where he feels stuck? I feel so many men right now, even the ones in relationship, that feels like they are starving to a certain degree. They feel connection, um, malnourished when it comes to connection, and they don't really know how to go about reclaiming that connection or rebuilding that connection. Do you have anything that comes that you would say to a guy at that level?
Yeah, if a guy is feeling emotionally malnourished in his life, I would invite him to be curious about what he feels he needs at this time. A
Hmm.
lot of those needs will shift, right? Sometimes in your life, you feel like you need some support from the people around you. You want to feel seen, or sometimes that is the guidance, right? Sometimes in our lives, we actually need some sense of guidance. I feel
Yeah,
stuck and I don't know where I'm going with my life. I have a lot of talents, I have a lot of resources, but I don't know how to channel any of that into something constructive, right? Maybe I do need guidance. Maybe it's time to seek a mentor or some kind of coach or somebody to play that role where I invite them to kind of interrupt my life in a way
yeah,
and help me look at the things that I'm maybe afraid to see or take more action in my life. But it's really tuning into at this time in your life with all of the stressors, all of the responsibilities, everything that's happening in your life. What do you need right now that you're afraid to assert in your relationships out of fear, out of fear of being perceived or being perceived as needy, as perceived as less masculine, or not having it all together. If that fear was gone for a moment, just for a moment, you were to put that down, right? And that fear of people perceiving you a certain way, what would you be able to express in these relationships?
yeah,
What would come through? Allow that to come through. Maybe that might be with your brothers. Maybe that might be with your partner. Maybe that might be with someone you're dating. Maybe you might think about certain family dynamics where there's space for some accountability. Maybe you're looking for forgiveness, but it's just being honest, like removing the mask just for a moment, removing the armor just for a moment, right? And again, this is not with people. This is just in your own private practice. You haven't even brought this to anybody,
Yeah.
right? So if you
Yeah.
have a journal in front of you, you have your notes app in front of you, tuning into what is that for me right now? What would be the most emotionally fulfilling experience that I could have right now based on what's happening in my life, based on the discomfort or the stuckness that I'm feeling in my body, right? And what's required from me in order to create that experience.
Yeah.
Does that require me to be a little bit more bold, be a little bit more honest, right? Tune in. But if there's any activation around that and what I'm saying, I invite to really explore, even throughout this conversation, things that I'm sharing from my own personal journey. If there's activation you're feeling from what I'm talking about, whether that's discomfort, resistance, or resonance, explore that because there's something there for you to uncover that um, you might not be acknowledging right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So what I'm hearing is it is so important for a man to, at this time, to become a, I want to say, a student of his own internal landscape, and maybe even a devotee of his own internal landscape. Because sometimes for guys, there is this, I don't know, reactive approach to life in general, and a reactive approach to just the attitude of wanting to put off fires instead of understanding the fire, instead of really connecting with the fire and knowing what the fire is made of. I see that as one of the key skills that we get to embrace during these times. And well, what I wanted to lean into at the moment is, what are some in your I think when I was reading your bio, there's a line that struck me towards the end. It's like, I think you mentioned something along the lines of like leaning into relationships from truth instead of from templates. And a lot of the work that I've seen in let's even put the relational world out there, and that doesn't apply just to men. It's like I see sometimes people are just looking for the template. Like, just give me the template of
Right.
what masculinity or femininity is supposed to look like at the moment. Just give me the template of how, I don't know, polarity is supposed to work and how I need to position myself polarity wise to make things work, to keep the
Mhm.
magnetism alive. And it's I feel like people are looking for a template instead of trying to engage truth. And I'm not saying that some templates are unimportant, um, but I want to have your take on a few things. What do you think are key, necessary, maybe archetypes that we must begin to cultivate, in all of us, like men or women? And at the same time, what are the things that cannot just be templated when it comes to relationships, where it's going to have to be some messy exploration of how do I make this relationship work for me?
Mm. Yeah, this is a great question. What I found is that there are certain things that you can't copy and paste from someone else's journey.
Hmm.
And I think even when we do, that creates an unfulfilling life, right? Where I've been handed a certain life to live and I followed that template as a man. Maybe it was to become a doctor or become an engineer because that was the safe thing to do. When I arrive at that point, it's going to feel unfulfilling.
Yeah.
It's going to have this like peak moment where I feel empty.
Yeah.
So imagine with the same with our relationships then. If I'm copying and pasting something somebody told me online about what this relationship should look like,
Yeah.
what I should embody, what I should display, what I should say, I'm not going to be very fulfilled in that relationship, right?
Yeah.
So there's a part of us that has to acknowledge that copying and pasting or cosplaying relationships we saw online because that was our favorite um, influencer or coach, and we loved his union, and we
Yeah.
thought maybe that would be possible for us.
Yeah.
The exploration of what that could look for us is very terrifying because it's the unknown, right?
Absolutely.
If I'm not copying a template from somebody else's journey or somebody else's relationship, I'm entering into the unknown. I have to discover this for myself. And if I'm journeying with somebody through that process, I'm going on that journey with them as well. So they get to see me fumble in the darkness of the
Yeah.
unknown, right?
Yeah.
They get to see me try to figure out how this is going to look for the both of us in a way that helps us be authentic, in a way that helps us embody our fullness, and in a way that helps us evolve throughout the course of the relationship. They're going to see me fumble, and I'm going to watch them fumble and try to make sense of it all, right? That's the discomfort that we're trying to escape from by looking at what's already been done, what's already been presented, and
Yeah.
attempting to copy and paste that into our own unique life,
Yeah.
right? Into our own unique relationship to life in a way. So I don't suggest that. I actually discourage it completely. And I say go into the discomfort. And part of the discomfort of going into that and finding the truth that's buried beneath that is really activating those archetypes. And one is the lover, the part of you that loves love in general, that wants to find out and be what is the thing that for a person that you're here to grow and evolve with through life, right? I think devotion for any man will change and evolve you in ways you could have never imagined.
Yeah.
Activating the lover and surrendering to the lover within you opens a whole new door to yourself that you can't find in isolation. But in order to lean into the lover, you have to be okay with death because that's what love does.
Yeah.
It kills the ego. It exposes what you thought you knew and shows you how much of that you have to let go of now. So finding the courage of the lover to be able to surrender in love is really important because there's a mystery to this whole thing, right? What we're
Yeah.
talking about is the mystery of it all, right?
Yeah.
When I lean into my own uniqueness and the uncovering of that, I'm in the mystery of love right now.
Yeah.
So how can I invite the lover, right? And how can I support the lover and my partner to arise, right?
Yeah.
And then another one I find really important is just the warrior. These two for me are really pivotal through this journey. The warrior is comes with the containment. The warrior comes with the discipline. The warrior comes with the leadership. But it's really embodied bravery, right? Because there's going to be a lot of discomfort that I find on this journey. And how can I activate the warrior? Because if I'm choosing right from the lover archetype, and I have a declaration for myself,
Yeah.
and that means me and my partner are going to uncover the deepest parts of ourselves through this union. That's our declaration. Maybe that's just a mantra that we have together. The warrior means that I face whatever discomfort that arises in the process
Mm-hmm.
without hitting an escape button, without trying to run away from the experience, without trying to run away from the uncomfortableness of it all, right?
Yeah.
The warrior, as we've seen physically embodied, charts into death, knowing that there's a possibility that he could die.
Yeah.
But he does not let that stop him from defending what he loves, right? It doesn't let him stop. Like, there's a village. My village is being attacked. My people are being attacked. The fear of death is not going to allow me to abandon my mission to this, right?
Yeah.
So he charged into that straight on. So having that warrior brings that sense of resilience that we need through love,
Mm-hmm.
right? To see it through to the end. Maybe that is the end of the relationship. Maybe that's
Yeah.
our last dying breath. I need to see that. So I think for
Yeah.
me, the lover and the warrior are very pivotal. I'm just speaking for men. Um, all I can speak for right now. Those are very pivotal in this exploration of what this could look like for us,
Yeah.
channeled through our own unique design and our own unique relationship to life.
And I think, as just like you, that these archetypes are so pivotal, and there is a humbling that I think the lover invites as an archetype in men, and by humbling, um, on so many levels, it's like first you have needs, and loving yourself means acknowledging these needs. And loving yourself means sometimes expressing these needs when you have no guarantees that these needs are going to be met necessarily. In relationships, it means acknowledging that, yes, you do have needs, and there's this core longing that you might have for connection, and your partner is not your mother. And how can you find a love that exists in this space where, you know, in with the relationship with the mother, there is this, I want to say, expectation. At the very least, if you've had a decent enough, loving enough relationship with your mother, in moments of like emotional distress, she will do the best she can to attempt to support you or to nurture you. And it's not always a guarantee in some other relationships. So I think there is the lover, especially in men, because with the warrior, men can be prideful. And until the warrior invites men to be like, oh, there are some emotional wars that you've been running away from. And sometimes the warriors will tell you, okay, we need to dive in there. You've been fighting in this external arena and trying to grow your pride and all of that. But let's go into the places, that you often battle externally as a way to avoid the internal turmoil. It's like when the two archetypes are working together, the warrior and the lover within men, or it can be the most terrifying thing ever because it is going to stretch your heart and expand it. And I wonder what has been your personal experience of that, moments of maybe divine humbling where you start realizing, shit, there's a lot I thought I knew that my body is going to catch up to. It's like sometimes the body has to catch up to what the mind, or the soul knows, like some intellectual knowledge. Because I see it within myself, I see it within men as well a lot. There are so many things that we can speak fluently to that our body is completely unable to, you know, integrate, work with until we've done the work of descending in there. What has been your experience of that?
Yeah, the humbling that comes with love for me has brought me to something really recent, um, that I didn't think I'd be talking about on this episode,
Mm.
this
No,
conversation. So,
now I'm excited, man. You gotta
it
spill the beans.
it's actually very recent. And again, like you said, like just that pride we can have in being able to talk, the talk, right? And having that language, right? Some of these things you think you've patched up and you've done the work on.
Yeah,
But for me, a relationship that I had with a woman brought me to look at a wounding that I hadn't looked at with my father,
yeah,
which was really weird. In my own perspective, it was a little odd because I kind of simplified relationships to, well, the woman is going to expose the mother wound to me. That's just how it works, right? She's going to expose and kind of be a reflection of maybe the best parts of my mom and the worst parts of my mom.
yeah,
And that's kind of how I kind of simplified it in a way. That was what I thought how relationships would work. And then through the relationship, as I'm talking about, that need to have someone mother what I have not fathered in myself
yeah,
really brought me to look at, wait, this is actually about my father. This has actually nothing to do with my mother. And so it was in moments where I was looking for guidance.
yeah,
There were moments where I was unfulfilled. I felt empty. I felt unfulfilled. I didn't feel understood. And I wanted guidance. Like, tell me what to do. That kind
yeah,
of energy. Please tell me what to do with this. Tell me where I should go. Tell me where I should invest this money. Tell me where I should move. Tell me where I should travel. I'm completely overwhelmed by how many unknown factors there are in my life. And I need some guidance. And I thought this was about my mother. And as I go deeper, I realize this was from not having that guidance from a father figure in my life.
yeah,
And it doesn't mean that my father didn't provide me guidance. It's different when you're given a script. A script isn't guidance.
yeah.
It numbs agency.
Mm-hmm.
There's no agency in a script. You just have to follow it and memorize it and proceed with what you're being given, the script.
Yeah,
My father gave me a script. Jeremiah, this is how you're supposed to live your life. This is what you do with your finances. This is where you should go to college. This is where you should move. This is the type of person you should marry. That was not guidance. I had no agency in any of that. And I also had no freedom to push back and kind of bring in my unique intelligence into the conversation.
Yeah.
So in these moments of deep frustration and stuckness, I was looking for that guidance. So it really brought me to kind of do this internal excavation of what is this pain really telling me about something that I didn't feel fulfilled or met by my own father.
Yeah.
And it was that longing for guidance. I had what I call the father hunger, right?
Hmm.
The hunger for a father. And the father comes with the provision, comes with the protection, comes with the guidance, comes with that leadership. But that leadership is curated to help you extract your own unique wisdom on life and
Yeah.
what you're meant to create. That's what the father does.
Yeah.
It demands agency. That's the difference between the script. It numbs agency. Father is
Yeah.
demanding agency. No, how do you move to this? What do you feel called to do? What problem in the world do you want to solve? I'm not going to
Yeah.
tell you what to solve. So there's a hunger in that collectively, right?
Yeah.
Because the same thing that I found with the script in my personal relationship, when I became an adult, found the same father archetype in the world,
Yeah.
where we're not collectively guided to discover our own unique relationship to life, our mission and our purpose. We're given exactly what to do. We're indoctrinated into someone else's belief system. And that shows up in all systems of authority,
Yeah.
from teachers to schools, religion to governments. So there's a lack of that guidance in general as a whole, right?
Yeah.
So that was a moment where I was really humbled. I was like, oh God, there's a lot of work here to be done with my father.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work here for me to learn how to cultivate the inner father, where I learn
Yeah.
how to guide myself, but also look in the right directions for that guidance. And it cannot be with my partner. I would be placing a lifetime of unmet needs on her. Let me
Absolutely.
reach out to a mentor. Let me get some brotherhood into my life. So
Yeah.
that was a moment for me that was deeply humbling
Yeah.
and
I mean,
very surprising.
yeah. I mean, I can relate to many different aspects of it. And just like you said, it feels like it's archetypal, it's collective. It's like the father guide, you know, archetype, if I'm going to put that under this wording. I feel like people, not just men, but there's a collective hunger for that. Um, yeah. And what I would love to get into at the moment is I feel like the way you're approaching relationships, it's more than just let's communicate, let's see how to communicate here, to troubleshoot conflict, to yeah, it's more than just let's improve our communication and conflict resolution and things like that. Let's work on like compatibility and all these different things. Um, I see it more as I don't know, a spiritual journey, a medicine journey. That's what my experience of relationships has been over the last,
Mhm.
I don't know. I've been with my partner for like nearly 11 years, and sometimes it annoys me that it brings
Beautiful.
up another thing that um, gets to be revealed, especially we have three kids now, and sometimes we have parental clashes, especially in terms of styles. I was born and raised in Cameroon, and I left Cameroon when I was 24. So this is 12 years ago. So the templates of what how a man shows up, a man leads, a man, how I father, are deeply kind of like infused with what I received, what I perceived, and all of that. And now, I I'm in this relationship with this woman, Canadian woman, different ways of like looking at parenting, um, so many different things as well, so many shared values. But sometimes there are still these clashes where I may come up in a specific way, and the African mentality in me can take over and being like, no, 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 this is where the line gets drawn in the sand, and this bullshit here is not happening, especially when it comes. I have two boys and they can be rambunctious at times. And there are moments where I'm like, no, 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 no. and sometimes she'll mirror, man, I'm not sure if that intensity was needed to convey the message. And part of me was like, no, 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 I feel like that intensity was needed. But so in that friction, there is so much integration and healing that gets brought forth. And what I love about the way you're approaching relationships, it's really okay, let's lean into the friction. Let's honor it as a way to expand and grow and transform and heal and integrate instead of I mean, let's go beyond the necessary step as well of like troubleshooting the communication mechanisms and stuff like that. So what I would love to get into is I feel like from one side or the other, like in relationships, regardless of the type of relationship, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes I feel like we have a hard time seeing each other. And an example of a post that I saw from you recently is where you talked about how I mean, you were talking specifically from from the feminine polarity, where sometimes it feels like, oh, the guy has work to do, that he has to work on himself, he has to work on his thing is, and you called out some of the sometimes feminine self righteousness that can show up within the work, the the thing the I want to say the relational work, which is, oh, I've looked at my own stuff. He needs to do the work and he needs to look at his shit. Kind of like saying, oh, it's on you. It's I see that a lot, whether from men or from women. It's like, no, 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 it's on you. You need to do this. Maybe you need to be a little bit more traditional. Maybe you need to embrace these other values that you've not embraced. And on the other side, it's like, no, you need to look at your shit. You need to look at your shadow. You need to look at stuff and stuff. So there's sometimes this finger pointing, relational finger pointing, where and some of it is well informed, some of it may be ill informed, and that again is my perception. But I sometimes I feel like in this sometimes engineered battle of sexes or gender wars, we have a hard time just seeing each other. What do you think we could do to be able to just see each other more beyond the self-righteous kind of conversation of like, you know, oh, this is on you and this is on you to work on and blah blah blah. Sometimes I feel like it's exhausting. And instead of a coming together and being like, okay, how can we love each other better? What does that look like?
Mm, how can we see each other more clearly? And how can that help us love each other better? I think is a really great question. And what I'm going to use as an example that's helped me see everyone in my life a lot more clearly. I will use my relationship with my mother as an example for this.
Hmm.
So, my relationship with my mother, when I'm in Atlanta and I'm visiting, we see each other all the time because it's kind of like a rare occurrence for me to be in Atlanta and to stay in Atlanta for more than like 3 days. So when that happens, like I'm in proximity to my mother, I'm in proximity to my siblings, we're all having a great time. Now, after 4 days of this, I start to really get uncomfortable because now my mother is in the process. She's asking me questions about my life. She starts micromanaging, right? Starts
Yeah.
micromanaging because to her, I will always be her little boy.
Yeah.
Then she starts stepping in. She's getting into the weeds, like, oh, you need to be doing this. What are you doing there? Asking me very invasive questions that I, as an adult, just don't feel like answering, right?
Yeah.
And so through this, then I have start to have a very distorted perception of my mother in these moments. I'm like, oh, she's still controlling. She hasn't changed much. Where's all this inner work that I think she's been doing? Because now she has Instagram. She's been watching Jay Shetty and Tony Robbins, and she's sending me all these videos. So I'm like, my mom is doing the work, right? So I'm like, nah, she's not doing the work. She still hasn't changed. She's still the same, right? And so now my perception of her is not holistic. It's kind of rooted in what I'm seeing show up, right?
Yeah.
And so what I've noticed is that when I step back and me and my mom have that space where I'm in New York or I'm in Mexico City and she's in Atlanta, and we're communicating, we're texting, we're checking in on each other. My perception of her is a lot more whole and it's a lot more clear. I
Yeah.
know how she has things to work on, but I can also see all the things that are so great about her and why I appreciate her so much. And I feel the deepest sense of gratitude when I have that space with her.
Mm-hmm.
When we're together and we're essentially enmeshed, it's very difficult for me to find gratitude and appreciation for my mother as a being, but my mother as a woman with her own unique journey. So the reason I'm bringing this up is I found that the way to see each other more clearly is actually to provide space. Because oftentimes in relationships, what we think is the solution to the relationship actually involves us getting more deeper into the relationship.
Yeah.
Meaning like, we need to spend more time together. We're not seeing each other enough. We need to go to therapy. Well, there's all these solutions that are about everything, but where can I step back a little bit to really see you more clearly and see what we have and what we've created more clearly? Because when I'm up close to you like this all of the time,
I see your
you become
pimples.
very familiar to me, right? I see pimples. I see your breakouts. I see, oh my God, and now I'm with that, right? If you look at the word fork long enough, you might think it's spelled incorrectly because you're so in its face. You're analyzing it. You're picking it apart. You're dissecting it. You can't even appreciate what is in front of you anymore.
Yeah.
So the solution I find is to actually let the relationship breathe a little bit. And a lot of people are in codependent dynamics where that sense or that invitation to give the space, give the person room to breathe and expand into their individuality is often a very triggering event for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Oh, if they do that, then maybe they won't want to be with me after. Or what are they going to do when they're with themselves? Maybe they go out with their buddies and might meet a pretty girl. Or she might hang out with one of her friends and she might bring a male around. I have all these anxieties around allowing space between us to breathe. So that when we come back together, which often happens, when you give a relationship space to breathe, there's a deeper erotic charge.
Mm-hmm.
Seduction is high, desire is high, intimacy is high. And there's a lot of gratitude and appreciation for the person because you step away from their process.
Yeah.
I think with women in this deep love and almost obsession they have with relationships and intimacy and therapy, they have become very involved in the unique process of a man's development. So because I have all the language and all the tools, now I can tell you how to be a better man. Baby, you need to go to therapy. That's going to be the solution. Baby, you need to do this. Baby, you need to do that. Baby, step away from my process. Let me uncover this on my own at my own pace is what most men need in their relationships. Give me the space to uncover this at my own pace. I'm going to get there, but it's going to be when I need to get there, not when you need me to get there. Now imagine if I was in your process. I'm saying, babe, you're still wearing tampons? You need to change that out. Babe, are you tracking your menstrual cycle? Baby, what are you doing about your hair? Oh my God. Are you using synthetics?
Yeah.
Imagine if I was in your process like that. That would be very uncomfortable, right? So it's like, it doesn't, we think it's going to help, but it actually does more harm. And so how can I give my relationships the space to breathe? And my relationship with my family is a great example that I extend to all my other relationships because that distance for me has always, it seems to continuously bring more intimacy into the relationship
Mm-hmm.
rather than less, more appreciation for my family, more gratitude for who they are and their presence in my life.
Yeah.
So I invite, because I think most people notice that long distance relationships with your family is actually how they're meant to be designed. Like long distance relationships were designed for your family. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. So, but
Mm.
how can we kind of look at that and then find ways where it's relevant in our partnerships? And that's what I find helps us love better.
Yeah.
is giving ourselves and our partners that permission to expand and to grow and to nurture themselves outside of our container, to
Yeah.
diversify their needs and to
Yeah.
diversify my own. You don't have to meet them all, and I don't have to expect you to meet all mine.
Yeah.
Go out, explore,
Yeah.
be in touch with that.
Yeah. You know what I'm hearing you say here is that, when you mentioned the long distance relationship with family, what I'm hearing is, I need to be able to individuate in the way I relate to these people. I need to be able to have this space to become my full self. And
Mhm.
and for some people, it might look like asking, taking more space maybe away or bringing more space in between. And I think there are also some phases where when you are in their vicinity, being able to hold who you know yourself to be is also part of the exercise, part of the growth. But also what you're bringing to the relational conversation is also being able to hold my own self within the relationship. And that includes the moments where there is
Mhm.
space in between. It's like,
Mhm.
um if a connection is not able to withstand moments of, I don't even want to call it separation, but moments of like space, moments of
Right.
distance.
Okay.
I'm not
Right.
sure if it's I'm not sure that it's a very solid connection, you know.
Right. Right.
So that's what I'm receiving from what you're sharing at the moment. And I think it's so important to have that. And what do you think, especially for, I see that especially in the in most of the women that I've worked with, seen, in my own personal life, there is such a fear that gets infused in the space that a man says he needs. There's a whole amount of fear. I'm not saying all women have this, but I've seen that definitely as a common trait. It's that spaciousness gets filled with so much fear that may have to do with the unique feminine psyche or the journey that some women have
Mm.
gone through. But sometimes I can feel so much fear being infused in there. Sometimes even I don't know, that can feel quite neurotic at times. So let's
Mm.
say let's say a woman is listening to this and she wants to understand more what is going on in a masculine psyche when
Mm.
her man is like, I just need a little bit of space to kind of even make sense of what is going on here, or kind of tune back into myself. What would you say to a woman that is hearing that and her whole body and psyche just starts to spin?
Mm. When a woman feels that anxiety coming up around a man needing the space, I often invite the woman to check in with the girl within, the little
Mhm.
girl within. Because oftentimes that anxiety is rarely about the current relationship. It's often a projection of another relationship
Yeah.
where that separation anxiety began. And most men, there's a very large percentage of men that are avoidant, which means there's a larger majority of women that are anxiously attached in relationships.
Yeah.
And so that anxious attachment showing up in the moments of separation or a man needing space or to take a break or to, recalibrate, come back to himself in his own way brings up a lot of discomfort. A
Mhm.
lot of that discomfort before you can even address where this is happening in the relationship, be curious about where it has happened in other relationships that led you to feel abandoned because that's what you're fearing was going to happen in this moment.
Yeah.
That where led you feel emotionally dropped because that's what you're afraid is going to happen if he takes that space,
Yeah.
right? Where you think there was going to be harm done to you in some shape or form. So it's about being curious about that first, because this is what I'm talking about with the containment. The containment is essential for all human beings to have. This isn't just for men, because that emotional containment is important for me to have if I'm a woman, to be able to contain that girl within when that anxiety comes up. and to tune into her and ask, what's coming up for you right now? Well, what's the story that's being reinforced here by this separation that I feel between me and my partner? Is there a story about the world, about love, about men that's being reinforced here? Oh, men obviously is. Men don't want you. You're too much for a man. Where did that come from? Who taught you directly or indirectly by what they modeled to believe that?
Yeah.
Is that a father figure? Is that a mother figure? Be curious about that first. Self regulation is usually the first door you need to go to before we're looking for the co regulation of, well, when are you going to come back? When are we going to tune into where can I regulate through this discomfort first so that when it arises as a need or invitation from my partner, it's clean,
Yeah.
it's grounded. So let me find out where this is coming from first. Maybe I need a journal about it. Maybe I do talk to my therapist or reach out to a girlfriend or I go a walk in nature. But it's really about getting curious about my own stories and where they're fueled by, what it's fueling them.
Yeah.
Because intimacy means that I can see you clearly, right? I'm with what's happening in front of us. And if I can't have that intimacy, if my lens on this relationship is distorted,
Yeah.
I need to polish that mirror before I can say I can see you and start creating stories about why you're doing this. I need to polish my mirror first.
Yeah.
I need to polish my mirror. That's my own work. That's what I can control.
Yeah.
Right. And then being curious about what might be going on in his world. Right. Put yourself in his shoes for a moment. It's a beautiful mental exercise in any relationship. Put ourselves in our partner's shoes. What might they be holding? What might not, they not be telling us? What might they not feel safe to express? Right. Have I been a safe space for that vulnerability? Some self accountability there. Right. And also understanding the plight of a man. If he's not sharing that with you, if he's taking the time to recalibrate and not do it with you, often it's because a man is holding an impossible equation in his mind. He's trying to make sure you feel held, you feel seen, you feel supported. Trying to make sure he shows up as a man, does what he needs to, and then he's also trying to be there for himself. Okay. It's very, very difficult for a man to hold all of this without leaning too much into himself or leaning too much into you.
Yeah.
Where he's needy, he's codependent, he's a nice guy, or he's armored and he's kind of avoidant completely. And you can't even feel his heart. It's very hard to harmonize this for men because our silence at times is not withholding. It's an expression of protection. I'm protecting you from the things that you should not see. I'm protecting you from the things that you do not understand about my life, my journey, and my responsibilities. If I come home after a long day, my child asks me, Daddy, how was your day? My friend could have died. I could have a stressful day at work. I'm not going to tell my son that. I'm going to tell him, Daddy had a great day. It was very productive. How was your day? That's what I'm going to say. My withholding is a form of emotional containment. I'm
Yeah.
protecting him from things about the world that he should not be exposed to right now. So men are constantly finding ways to do that in their relationships. How can I be with you, but also be with the raw reality of what it means to be a man without spilling that onto you? Because God knows you won't understand it. You have not lived and suffered through life as a man. So holding that in mind, because it's very humbling, it's very humbling. Despite your knowledge about relationships or psychology, you will never know what it's like to live and suffer through life as a man.
Mm-hmm.
Just as that man will never know what it's like to live and suffer through life as a woman. So the only thing that we can do is be empathetic, be understanding to what people need to come back to themselves. Well, to be curious about that rather than pushing what we think should be happening in that moment.
Yeah.
It's about inviting the curiosity a little bit in those moments.
Yeah. I love that, man. Can um I wanted to ask you, what are some modern scripts, relational scripts that you think instead of bringing us together closer, are pushing us away? Because um, lately, one of the modern tendencies that I've seen is on one end, there's a lot of people doing quite a bit of relational work. And on the other end, I am seeing so many people defaulting to like, we don't need each other. And, it's like, I don't need men on one end. And on the other end, I don't need women. I'm just going to live my life and do my own thing and blah, 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 and have my own fun. Great, fantastic. And there is, to me, living in a holistic system, which is what life is. I look at um, every human being as part of an organism. It's a little bit like the heart telling
Mm,
to the brain, like, I don't fucking need you, man. You can piss off, like,
right, right,
shoot yourself in the
right.
head. I'm gonna keep going with just like what is below the neck type thing. And I feel like there are so
Amen.
many scripts. I don't want to say, let me even go there. I feel like there are many relational psyops that we are
Mm,
operating from at times that we need to
mm.
maybe collapse to come back to love. And I wonder what's your opinion on this.
I'll be honest. My biggest script that I'm seeing right now that I think is doing more harm than any good is exactly what you said. It's men don't need women and women don't need men. I mean, many people are saying that in other ways. Maybe they're not saying that boldly directly, but they're saying it in other ways. And I think this is very harmful for many reasons. One, it leads to the collapse of any functioning society. When everyone is living on an island, depending on themselves, how can we, like, as a collective right now, like, repair our relationship to the village? Because right now we're living in the collapse of the village.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have drum circles. I don't have rites of passage. I don't have rituals with my family. I don't have sacred ceremonies prepared for my son when he comes into this world, right? There's not elders or grandfathers or the uncles and aunties to be able to gather around a fire together on a Sunday night. But we don't have that anymore. So how can we reemerge into the village if we're living on islands? I don't need you. You don't need me. We're on our own. We don't have needs. Like, how can we come back to that?
Yeah.
How can we recreate that in this modern context if we're isolated from each other, right? We're pushing
Yeah.
away from each other. And we're becoming addicted to this illusion of optionality, right? Where I have all these options of who I can relate to, where I don't even learn how to deal with the complexities of an actual relationship anymore. Because I'm addicted to this infinite possibility that feels available to me
Yeah.
because I have these apps, I have these social media outlets that are exposing me to different types of relationships, different types of women, different types of men. I'm like, I don't know, I think I'm good. But I think it's very, very harmful because I think it's creating the collapse of a society, but it also makes us incapable of
Mm-hmm.
cultivating the skills needed to be in a healthy, grounded, thriving relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't get to cultivate those skills, and those skills are cultivated in partnership.
Yeah.
So if I'm busy living on an island within an echo chamber of just me and my brothers, or the guys that agree with me, or my own personal ambitions and pursuits, I don't get to learn, I don't get to practice, right? All of the things needed and necessary to be in a thriving relationship. So I think we miss a lot when we start to follow the script because it sounds good.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to help us feel good about ourselves. It's supposed to help us feel empowered,
Yeah.
right? But that is a false sense of empowerment. It's a false sense of empowerment. It's
Yeah.
like the I don't give a fuck mentality.
Yeah.
It's a false sense of empowerment. It feels empowering in the moment to say, I don't give a fuck. But we all know that when I'm in my private life, when I close the door and the crowd is gone, and I'm scrolling through Instagram and I look at that cute couple, my heart starts grieving. I
Yeah.
start to feel that longing come up.
Yeah.
And these are the ideas and thoughts and desires that keep me up at night. About who am I going to share my life with? Who do I get to grow with? Who gets to see me grow through life? And who do I get to witness through that process? That's what's keeping me up all night. That's the longing that I'm trying to suppress as much as I can with this false sense of empowerment of I don't give a fuck. I
Yeah.
don't need a woman. I don't need a man. We need to learn to be with that longing because
Yeah.
this is what these scripts are attempting to help us bypass and numb
Yeah.
because it will numb if you give into it as much as a lot of people are. It will numb. It will numb
Man, I
you.
love that answer. And would you say that acknowledging that the desire to share one's life with someone else or with each other, it doesn't need to be like any traditional form of relationship, but just the desire to share life with someone who is committed in return to sharing life in whatever form it wants to take. But I feel like that is a core need that most people are unwilling to admit. It's sobering to admit. I mean, one thing. Let me just lay this down, and I'm curious to see what are your thoughts on this. I feel like we have entered the world of maximum convenience, and we haven't found a way to engineer that for connection. Because you can now get on an app, scroll through so many profiles a day of men or women that you can date. You can swipe, 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 swipe. Like that has been made so easy. But one thing that I don't know if we will ever find a way to make convenient is how to build connection, which is you have to disclose shit. You have to disclose desires, values, wounds, fears, love, joy. I don't know things. I don't know if there is a way to make that process way more to engineer convenience into that. And the only way I see to bring more convenience into that is to grow emotionally, spiritually, so that you are able to hold your open heart with way more ease than you were before. So yeah, basically where I'm going, there's a need for acknowledging even the desire or the need, let me call it a need for
Mm,
a shared for sharing life with people, you know,
mm, mm,
in a committed way. And on the other
mm,
side, there is the realization connection is not, maybe it's not meant to always be convenient. And that this is also what
mm,
makes it meaningful. What are your thoughts on
right.
this?
Mm. I think, I mean, this is a big generalization, but I think everyone at their core wants a companion to life, wants a witness to their life, wants someone to grow with. I think everyone carries that longing. Everyone possesses that desire. Some it's more activated, others it's more repressed, more numbed out. But I think at the core, everyone has that desire. It's a big generalization, but I think everyone at the core has that desire. Um, and the reason I think everyone has that desire is because we all have a desire to evolve. We all have a desire to evolve. There's no human on the planet that does not have some desire to evolve and to maximize their potential. Nobody knows where potential comes from. We just all feel it on some level. I have the potential for something, the potential for transformation, the potential for growth, the potential to impact the world in a positive way, the potential to leave my mark on the world before I leave. We all feel that potential, right? And so if I have that desire to maximize my potential and to evolve, I know that that's going to happen in relationships because that is where I experience most discomfort, the most discomfort. Because, like you said, in relationships, all doors within are exposed. Your wounds, your joys, your fears, your dreams, your back doors, your wounding, all of it is exposed. Nothing can hide under the gaze of love. Nothing can hide. So everything is put out into the open, and it has to be put out into the open if you want the possibility of transforming, of evolving, of growing. You cannot grow in love if you're keeping your cards close to your chest. You're hiding certain parts of yourself from the person you're growing with. You will not grow in that relationship. This is why it's so challenging. The only way to grow is to fully expose yourself. It's the only way you can grow. So this is why I think a lot of people would rather find some kind of back door to this, some kind of convenient hack, tip, trick, polarity script, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
to be able to not have to go through that,
Yeah.
right? And for me personally, that's not the kind of life I want to live. My goal in life is to approach God with a clear conscience.
Yeah.
It's my only goal in life. When I'm at that gate of death and I'm with my last dying breath, I want to have a clear conscience.
Yeah.
Did you live every moment? Did you maximize the potential I gave you? Did you lean into the talents that I planted in your heart, the mission that I seeded in you? And did you allow yourself to love and be loved? These are the questions I'm going to have to answer. So the container or the channel of relationships helps me uncover what that is. In certain indigenous tribes, they don't even let a man become the leader unless he's married.
Yeah.
Unless he's married, he cannot become the leader of that tribe because they know you cannot say you are the leader of this tribe if you have not done a complete excavation on all parts of yourself. And they know that excavation happens in a relationship. It
Yeah.
happens in the container of a marriage. So they won't even let you lead. They won't even let you step into that role until they know you are married. Because it means you have uncovered yourself. You are in the process, and there's a refinement that's ongoing between you and the mirror you've chosen in this life.
Mm-hmm.
That we can trust. That individual that leans into that process, that person we can trust to lead our community, to lead our tribe. So there's an innate understanding that people that avoid relationships, people that push against this, are often protecting a locked door within themselves, protecting a locked door within themselves that they are unwilling to explore and uncover due to some kind of fear. So I always encourage to lean into that longing. No matter how it might look to you, no matter how it might shadow some of your beliefs, lean into that longing. Whether that's right now, all you can titrate through is having a dog or a pit bull that you grow through life with. It's companionship. Maybe that's what your nervous system can handle.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a group of plants in your home that you nurture and take care of, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's your best friend. Maybe it's a close brother of yours. Maybe that evolves and you're like, maybe I am open to partnership. Maybe I do want somebody else in my life, right?
Yeah.
But it's about it's not suppressing that long and not pushing against it. Because I think it's very human of us.
Yeah.
Very human of us to want that. You
Yeah.
know?
So what I'm hearing is the 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 conversation that some people have been having about, oh, I don't need this, I don't need that, is more of a dehumanizing conversation because it
Very.
conditions something that is central out of us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there are three main questions that are in my head at the moment. And I'm sorry. My brain cannot stop following
No,
threads.
bring it.
So I have
Bring it,
a
man.
few more. I know the conversation is already past the hour and a half mark. So
Bring it, man. I'm here.
I'm gonna bring it home. The first one is how in your view a man can begin to find worth beyond usefulness. And I'm going to share a little bit the the place where this question is coming from. From observing some of my patterns and working with a lot of men, what I often see is whenever they have a sense of not being needed, whenever we have a sense of not being needed, it can really shoot at the self-worth, self-esteem,
Mhm.
maybe even self-love. I think when a guy feels not needed, and that's also what made me see this collective script as, oh, um, we don't need men, or men are not needed, as potentially one of the most destructive things that the the guy who hasn't yet developed the ability to nurture himself and to father
Mhm.
himself, that's
Mhm.
quite destructive. So
Mhm.
how some men are challenged working with disappointment, feeling unneeded, feeling like, oh, I am not meeting the standard
Mhm.
of what I should meet in a world
Mhm.
as well where, it is easier and easier for people who were traditionally seen as the dependents of a man to be able to
Mhm.
provide for themselves way more than ever before, way easier than ever before. So I feel like there are some there's there's a necessary evolution of what does it look like to find a sense of worth beyond usefulness, which is one thing.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
maybe is it possible that the usefulness is shifting in form? It is not necessarily what the kind of like traditional way of looking at being useful as a man looked like. Maybe
Mhm.
there's a new set of requirements that are in there that men are not haven't integrated yet. We're not seeing
Right.
clearly
Right.
yet. Like the
Mhm.
capacity to offer, just like you said, um, a stable ground for relational connection or containment to unfold. I feel like there's a different form of provision and a different form of
Mhm.
usefulness that can unfold. And I wonder, on both sides, what does it look like to create a sense of like worthiness or self-esteem and self-love beyond being seen as useful by the world? And
Mhm.
also on the other side, it's like, what is the new expression of actually being really useful? Or, anyways, this is the rambling that is going on in
Yes.
my head at the moment. How do you receive it? Does it make sense, or can we build from this?
And it's very clear. And it actually brought up a lot of rambling in my head, and I'm going to try to synthesize the rambling as clearly as I can.
Yeah.
Because it's a beautiful excavation, and I think that for any listener that's tuning into this episode, to find a way to be useful in the world, I think is an essential human innate need as well. But I'll speak from a male perspective. Um, as I was sharing earlier, this like before and after kind of screenshot of my life, in that in between space where that permission or that retreat that I got due to COVID and the pandemic and all of this, um, what I did was I lived out a certain mental exercise that I want to invite everyone to go on. Imagine your life where you have no responsibilities. You don't feel the call to be useful to anybody. And so you are living a life on your terms. There's no responsibility. There's no obligation to go out and earn money so that you can provide for anyone, so that you can give this to anyone, so you can take care of anyone. Just a mental exercise where you explore what would your life look like. You might travel. You might go here. You might do this. You might start a hobby. You might pick up an old hobby. You might learn surfing. You might see the world. You might meet a monk. You might spend 6 months with a couple monks and go to the Shaolin temple. Who knows? But in that mental exercise, what you will find is that that will serve you and it will feel great for about maybe a year, maybe two, maybe even three. But there will come a point where you will tune in and ask yourself, I thought this is great, but I mean, I kind of want to be useful to somebody. I kind of want to do something. I kind of want to have an impact. This has been great. Just being able to do what I want, when I want, how I want. I kind of want to impact life. I kind of want to serve. Kind of want to, what, how can I be useful to people right now?
It's like letting go
All
of your
this
Peter
freedom and
Pan.
energy, right? You let go, you explore the Peter Pan as deep as you want. Where will it take you? Where will it take you? When you follow that rabbit hole as deep as you can, you'll find a point where you have a question. You ask yourself, well, now with all this energy and all this abundance, I feel great. I don't want to be useful to somebody, to something. So this is what happened. I lived this mental exercise during this pandemic. I was in Mexico 6 months by myself, just enjoying my life. I was writing poetry every day, sipping coconut water from a beautiful coconut. I mean, 3 a day. I mean, this is like luxury for me. I had about 6 mangoes that were perfectly ripe. This is luxury. Now, I had
Yeah.
no responsibilities. I didn't have to call anybody. I kept in contact with my family, but I didn't feel any obligations on anybody.
Yeah.
And then I explored that long enough and had great time, great talks with people I was meeting. Relationship with God expanded. And I came to this point where I was like, ugh, I want to give back. I feel great. With all this energy, I just want to share it. But I want to share it through the channel of service. What can I serve? So in my prayers and my meditations, I was tuning in to where is life inviting me to serve, to provide, to lead, and to be useful. That's what came out of this exercise. But the beauty of that journey for me was I got to put down the responsibilities for a moment. And when I was ready to pick them back up, I had more clarity on which ones I actually resonated with,
Yeah.
which ones I actually valued. So when I entered into that channel of being useful or providing, it felt like my own because I got to clear out some of the programming that told me this is what you should be doing. This is how you should be useful. So at the core for a lot of men is a desire to be useful. If you ever read a series of suicide letters from men, at the core of it, you'll notice a common thread. The man is ending his life because he thinks that's the way that he can be useful to the people around him. And the most useful thing he can do is to actually leave this world.
Yeah.
So the extracting the essence of this, it's for me, how I've internalized it is that masculine energy is actually very destructive when it orbits itself.
Yeah.
Meaning my ambitions, my desires, what do I want, my understanding of freedom and being able to do what I want when I want and how I want. It actually becomes very destructive. Now, in order for masculine energy to be clean, to be grounded, and to be constructive, it must orbit something outside of itself, such as service, God, a mission, a purpose, community, a lover, a family. That is the way in which we actually clean out the destructive, conquering impulses that are innate in the primal animalistic body of every man. Right.
Yeah.
It's a way to keep that energy clean. So it must orbit. It's how you keep that part of the lower self in check. Is that it orbits something outside of its own ambitions and desires. So the desire to be useful is, for me, in my opinion, it's actually very innate to a man's play. Now, what you want to be useful to is actually getting clear on what lights you up. With all the talents you have in your life, why would God place that in you? What greater purpose could that serve? With all the gifts and the things that you feel called to, what could be next in your life? And who and what are you willing to devote yourself to?
Yeah.
Right? What's the hill you're willing to die on?
Mm-hmm.
As a man, you have to have a hill you're willing to die on. So that is, the activation of your own inner warrior, your truth, your declaration, your philosophy, your values, your principles, your North Star. Have a hill you're willing to die on. But what does that look like embodied and lived, not just as a theory, but as a living embodiment, right? What does it look like?
Yeah.
So I think that requires you to actually be curious and do some self introspection of what are you carrying right now? What have you internalized about your journey or what you should be doing, how you should be useful that you can put down? That's not yours to carry. And if you were to put that down, what would happen? What would be available to you? What would be possible? Is where I would ask, I think everyone listening to explore and be curious about. But I think the desire to be useful is pretty innate
Yeah.
to the human being.
Yeah. I love that answer, man. And what I'm hearing as well there is, let's say a guy is depressed right now, and even figuring out what he wants to serve is something that he might have a hard time doing. I mean, maybe finding something he can take care of,
Mm,
like a pet, a dog, I don't know, a cause, or maybe go
kingdom.
volunteer somewhere in the shelter. I have no freaking idea. Something that can activate the fiber of service. And now, within the context of relationship, where somebody is witnessing that, okay, my grandfather's version of being useful as a man, meaning the provider, does not necessarily apply to this specific relationship. Um, in what new, and I think when it comes to the roles that men have in their relationships, sometimes it can be filled with a lot of pride. Um,
Mm.
it's like there's a lot of pride that comes with saying, "Oh, I'm the provider. I am this. I am that." Um, and I feel like there's a humbling that is necessary at the level of feeling maybe useful in our relationships, in modern relationships. What is your take? What is
Mm.
your view on that?
So for me, this is very important. This is very important for men. I think everybody to understand the provision that you're able to provide to the people in your life is not provided by you. It's not provided by you. It's provided by the energy and the life force that's moving through you that makes that possible.
Hmm.
The only way to keep the masculine ego in check is to understand that it is sourced, provided, led by something greater than itself. And that self you can call God, you can call your creator, you can call the universe. Give whatever name feels comfortable to you, but lean into that because there's a humility. If the humility is not present with the pride, it becomes arrogant. If all you have is humility, then you are dimming your own light. You walk into a room, you're like, oh, it's not me, it's God working through me. It's an expression of shutting yourself down, belittling your gifts, belittling your uniqueness. Too much pride becomes arrogance. You think you are the doer. You think that this is happening because of you. It's very arrogant. So the way in which we show up in a way that's more integrated is by accompanying both. Yes, I should have pride as a man. Throughout all the struggles of my life, throughout all the complexities of modern day life and all the, things that are difficult about being a man, I'm still able to take care of my family. Still able to provide, still able to show up every day, still able to, carry the water and chop the wood. I'm here. My family looks great. We have a beautiful home. There's food on the table. Take pride in that as a man. There's a lot of men that abandon that responsibility and
Yeah.
forfeit it and don't even step into that role. Take pride in that. Now, the humility comes with understanding that there is something that's working through you. You are an instrument right now. You're an instrument. But what is who's the guitarist? Who's playing that music through you, through your body, through your dedication, your motivations, your ambitions? Who is the musician? Tune into that musician, lean into that musician's guidance, its love, and have reverence for it. This is where we behead our own egos as men willingly. I place that down and I understand there is something greater at work here. And how can I have reverence for that? How can I have reverence for that? How can I honor its presence in my life that makes all of this possible? Because this wouldn't be possible without it. I can't say that this is all because of me. I can't. I'm co-creating with something at all times.
Yeah.
So every great man, even every great king, understands that he is nothing more than a servant. He is nothing more than a servant. In certain ancient texts, they do not see Yeshua or Jesus as a prophet. They see him as a servant. Servant meant to serve. That is how we keep these parts of ourselves, the lower self and its infinite appetite, in check.
Yeah.
We keep it in check. We keep it in its place. You know, I think it's important to take pride in those things, but I think it's how can I invite some humility here?
I love
Because
that.
that, if I follow that pride too long, it becomes very destructive to the people around me and very
Yeah.
dangerous in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Um, so I want to ask you something that has to do more with the title of this show. It's called Enheartened for a reason,
And
because from my own practice, I've noticed that we liberate ourselves the most when we are able to invite back into the heart aspects of ourselves we were conditioned to see as unlovable or that we had to reject. And a question that there are two questions. Two questions that I've been asking to every guest who showed up on the show. The first one is there an aspect of you that you're still learning how to love at the moment through your own introspection, um, through the work that you're still committed to? What is an aspect of you that maybe you don't have such a great relationship with? You're still learning to find that kind of healthy relationship with that aspect of you.
this is a great question. Um, the this would make my mother very proud if she were listening to this. The aspect of myself that I'm still learning to love and in a lot of ways reparent is the part of me that can be very sharp with my tongue.
Hmm.
And that's exactly how my mom would phrase it. The reason I bring that up is because I had a recent experience with a younger sister of mine, and I love her dearly. But there were things showing up in her life that really frustrated me and patterns that I saw her playing out and a lot of victim stories. And I stepped in and just kind of picked her apart, was very direct, was very clear, and told her what she should be doing, what needs to happen, and kind of the story she's playing out. And in that moment, I felt that I was right. I was justified in that. Kind of held my own pride about it. And in later reflection, I kind of started to feel sadness come up. I was
Hmm.
like, why am I feeling sad? Oh, great. She needed to hear that. Nobody else is going to tell her. Like, glad I'm her big brother. And there's a part of me that started to feel sad because I didn't take into account the fact that she's my little sister. She's also a young girl. And there's a certain warmth and gentleness and tenderness that I have to communicate with that is can still be firm, can still be direct, but it it's an invitation. I didn't present an invitation to her. Just told
Yeah.
her this is what it is. I gave her a reality check. So for me, it's reparenting that part of myself that I think helps me in a lot of areas of my life that can cut through people's bullshit, provide them guidance, give it to them straight.
Yeah.
That part of me, it doesn't need to be in that department of my life, especially with such a dear relationship like my
Hmm.
little sister. So it's really learning how to. I love that part of me, but I think it's really about being able to reparent it and understand there's a time and a place. Now, how can this be provided? How can this be asserted with a warmth, with a tenderness and a gentleness?
Yeah.
And maybe there's some room for that in my own life, right?
Yeah.
If this is how I'm coming to people that I care about, maybe there's room for me to be maybe more warm and more gentle and maybe make room to invite some tenderness into my own life and in my own practices. So that's what feels alive for me right now. As I'm really reflecting on that question.
Yeah, I see you there, man. And
Mhm.
I can relate to so many aspects of that in how the delivery of the love or the care
Mhm.
sometimes matters most than the care package itself.
Right,
Um
right.
so yeah, I relate to that so much. Um,
Yeah, I just saw a
recent
quote from
Go
Connor
ahead.
Beaton. He was like, sorry for the things that I did when I was trying to help you." Which for
Absolutely.
me is just like it kind of captures it.
Yeah. Yeah. It captures the essence of it, which is um realizing how unskilled we can be at helping, even though what we have to offer is still medicine. But somebody can offer medicine in two ways. Let's say I have a needle that is 3 inches wide,
Mm,
and it still holds inside like potent medicine, and I have a needle that contains the same medicine but just maybe 1 inch. Oh no, no, not
mm,
even an inch. It's just like half of a millimeter.
mm,
It's like
mm, mm.
but yeah, I see what you meaning. What you mentioned there, it's so important as well, because if by delivering the medicine it feels like there's a fracture that happens at that
Right,
moment,
right,
it's like,
right.
was that really was that really it? Anyways, thank you so much for sharing that, and it speaks to many aspects of my own journey. And what I would love to finish with, there is this book that I've written called Scars of Gold that will come out in a little over a month. And the reason why it's called Scars of Gold is because in my own journey, I've realized that even the work that I'm doing right now started with some pain that I had to work through. And I wonder, do you have some scars right now that you would consider scars of gold? Like the brightness that the wisdom you're able to speak from, to share from, to embody to a certain degree is maybe the result of you working through that sacred wound that turned into a scar of gold. Is there anything like that for you?
Mm, damn. Oh my God. To be honest, the scar that's helped me bring about the goal that I feel I'm able to share with the world or my friends and my family. The scar for me that really sticks out is the absence of the fathering,
Hmm.
the absence of not having that father figure to really guide me and support me through life. I'm like trying not to get emotional, but it's a deep scar. I have not realized how deeply it's impacted the entire trajectory of my life in many ways. Not having that father figure that supported me,
Yeah.
believed in me, uh, you know, guided me in many ways. My father passed away when I was really young. Um, but I was blessed and fortunate to have a father figure that stepped in. And that was, I mean, I give all my gratitude for the sacrifices he made to be able to take care of me, my siblings, and even me in many ways. A lot of the values I still hold today are provided by what he embodied and modeled.
Yeah.
But there's a deep scar and wounding because in our relationship, there were years of physical, emotional, verbal abuse. And so I carry that scar. And what I've been able to extract from it is that all of the ways that my father didn't love me, didn't show up for me, didn't guide me, didn't teach me, has made my life possible. The things that I'm able to do, the things I'm able to share, the systems, the frameworks, the practices, the medicine I'm able to provide are all made possible by something a younger part of me wishes to rewrite.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for the ways that my father kind of loved me, the cracks and the blemishes and the ways that he tried to care for me, teach me, guide me. I am so fucking grateful. because all of those gaps and all of those cracks have become my very mission. The way I father myself, the way I love myself, the way I guide myself are all made possible by that. I am so fucking grateful, eternally grateful. And there's nothing about those experiences I wish to rewrite. Nothing. Not a single moment of it. If I did, none of this would be possible. Even just a slight variation or tweak in a moment or a parenting style would completely change the trajectory of my life. So I take pride in the work that I do now. I take pride in the man that I've become. I take pride in the way that I'm able to lead in my life, the way I'm able to show up for myself. And so I thank the wound. I thank the scar that was left behind by this relationship with my father. I thank it every day. So that is the scar that today I'm still unpacking. I'm still excavating. I'm still learning more and more and more about. But I'm grateful for it because it's brought about so much wisdom and understanding and also a deep love and reverence for the men in my life and also the men that I don't know that I might meet in the future. And so it's all made possible by this weed. So I'm very grateful for that and the gold that's something.
Man, that's awesome. And I think, for anybody hearing this, you might not be in a space where you're able to access gratitude for the pain and gratitude for the wound or gratitude for the journey or maybe even the gifts that came out of it. Because at some point we often feel, I don't know, no one likes having to deal with like emotional injuries. But what I keep seeing is um, every wound is a spiritual journey, and every
Oh,
wound has wisdom of its own, and that's something that I keep seeing and unpacking. So I want to thank you, man, for just being here, for expressing your medicine, for opening your heart and for the transparency that you brought in the conversation. And, also, I think taking the relational conversation beyond just like pop psychology, basically. There's a lot of like relational work that has become pop psychology on steroids, and sometimes it's tiring to even hear. And hopefully, if somebody has listened to it this far, to this conversation, they received more from it. Is there any final nugget of wisdom you would love to offer to anybody listening? And also, where can they enter your universe? Where can they enter Jeremiah's your work and um your offerings and what you have to offer to give the world?
yeah, this has been a gift, man. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the questions. Um, my final words are just if there is any activation you felt throughout this conversation, sit with that. Be curious. Where is that coming from? What is it there to teach you? What is it there to show you? What is there to reveal to you? Maybe there's a part of my story that really stuck out to you. Sit with that. Replay that part again. Maybe you're listening while you're driving or doing a bunch of other things, and you kind of bypass that activation because you're multitasking. Revisit that part.
Yeah,
Go back and then sit with it. So that's just an invitation, and notice what comes up. Um, but from that, you can feel free to stay connected with me via my Instagram is really my main channel, where I update, share my work, share some offerings. So that will be my name, which is spelled Jeremie, and my last name, Lotemo, Lotemo. I'm sure this will be tagged in the description. But that's where you can stay connected with me and learn more about my offerings and what I'm working on building.
that's awesome. Alrighty, brother. It's been a pleasure to have you here, to have you on Enheartened. And to anybody who enjoyed the conversation, wherever you're listening to the show, um, if you feel that this show is adding anything to your life, leave a review. Let us know what you think. And let me know what are some topics people, voices you would like to see more on the podcast. And beyond everything, thank you for keeping this alive. Thank you so much, brother. And I'm looking forward to connecting in different ways soon.